Do you have an audition coming up? How much have you thought about your audition? Auditions are all about preparing. The more you know about your audition, the more likely you are to do well. Why do they make you play scales anyways? Unfortunately, it's a way to show that you can play every note in a certain key proficiently and with a good sound. It's also a way to see how much attention to detail you put into all aspects of musicianship, including range, tempo, correct rhythm and note duration, intonation or center of pitch, tone, knowledge of a key, consistency, and the list goes on. Knowing your scales is more than knowing what note to start on and what sharps and flats there are. Having said that, know your scales. Absolutely know the sharps and flats of the arpeggio. But take it to the next step. Memorize them. If you're not supposed to memorize your scales already, and you do memorize them, and you show the judges that, they'll notice. Unless you're supposed to already have them memorized, and if the judges see that you play your scales with a scale sheet, that's bad news. If you think you know your scales pretty well, challenge yourself. Play different sequences of scales like thirds or the Clark 2 study. Practice scales like they're long tones to ensure that you're getting the center of pitch and full resonance on your horn. Speed it up a little at a time until you're at an appropriate speed. Slur the scales first and then tongue. How do your scale sheets say to play them? Sometimes judges may ask you to alternate between tonguing and slurring scales. If you tongue them and they don't suggest the type of articulation, I would suggest legato over staccato. It'll show your sound off more. Play at a very consistent tempo. Don't start fast and slow down, and don't slow down at the end of either scales or your arpeggios unless the scale sheet calls for it. Play the final note to the full duration according to your official scale sheet. If there's a fermata, hold it a little longer. Play your scales as fast as you can play your hardest scale with a good sound, and then maybe 4 beats per minute less. For instance, if my hardest scale is concert G and I play it well and with a good sound at 100 beats per minute, I'll audition all my scales at 96 beats per minute. It's a small buffer between, the 4 beats per minute, but it allows a little bit more tone duration for your sound and resonance. If you have one, and if you don't have one, go get one right now, either an app or a real one, but buy a metronome. It'll be your best friend when it comes to tempo and subdividing. How do you know exactly how fast your 16th notes are supposed to be when you play your scales for your audition if you can't have a metronome? You have to subdivide them in your head. Before you play your scale, have the tempo going in your head. You have the quarter notes going, that's fine. Then have the 8th note. Count them in your head. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Same thing with the 16th notes. 1E and a 2E and a 1 and a 2E and a 3 and a 4E and a 1. Triplets for the arpeggio, typically. Although it's fun to play scales with flourishes, or as fast as you can, or with a crazy vibrato, they should be ultra uniform and relatively boring, except for your sound. So show them that you can do everything else we just talked about. Playing the chromatic scale can be a chromatic experience, especially if you're just playing it over and over and over the same way, just to practice it. So break it down. First, use octave patterns. Start at your lowest note, let's say concert F, and ascend the chromatic scale an octave to the next F, then go back down. After that, start at concert F sharp and follow the same pattern up to the next F sharp an octave higher, and then back down. Once you're comfortable with 1 octave, take it to 2. Another way to practice the chromatic scale is to start on low C, descend chromatically to low F sharp, ascend back to C, continuing up to the next F sharp, then return chromatically to low C. Repeat this pattern starting on C sharp, and it goes on. This breaks down and exposes the more difficult portions of the scale when you play it. Isolate these parts and practice them slowly. As with all the other scales, keep the tempo throughout the scale and use the according rhythms that they want you to play it as. Play it a little slower than as fast as you can with a good sound. When practicing, challenge yourself. How many times can you play the chromatic scale accurately and with a good sound in one breath? If you're used to just playing in band class, you should be getting used to playing no louder than everyone else and fitting inside the sound of the entire ensemble. Playing soloistically is different. Here you exaggerate your dynamics and the accents. The loudest part of the piece should be synced with your nicest sounding loud, and the softest part of your piece should be the softest you can play with a good sound. When you first get your solo, play it incredibly slow. It's important for the first few times you play it that you get the notes right so that you don't learn it incorrectly. When you learn notes or certain parts of the piece incorrectly, it becomes habit, and those can be hard to break. If there's one available, and YouTube usually has something, get a good performance of the piece and listen to it a lot. Model yourself after the recording and follow along in the music. If there's more than one recording, analyze the differences between the two. What do you like more, or which do you think is more correct? This goes for practicing anything, not just for an audition, but don't practice what sounds good and what is easy to play. Practice what doesn't sound good and make that part sound just as good as everything else. It's easy to practice things that sound good, but you must have discipline to practice the challenging parts. When you see your sight reading piece for the first time, don't let your eyes be tempted to jump straight to the blackest part of the page and spend all the time analyzing it. Those few notes you're concerned about might be played correctly, but you've also might have missed the tempo or the key signature, two things that affect the entire piece instead of just a few notes. Instead, follow the stars hierarchy. S stands for signatures, and in this case, time and key signature. I include both time and key signature because they're right there at the front of the piece next to each other. Some other instructors might include the time signature with the next star's letter T. You need to know which flats and sharps happen throughout the whole piece. If your specific audition process allows you to play something before you play your sight reading, I would suggest playing the scale that your sight reading is in. Also, you should be familiar with the time signature. Is the piece in duple or triple time, meaning does it have a waltz feel like 3/4 time, or a typical common time 4/4 or 2/4 or cut time? The T in stars stands for tempo and tempo changes. How fast does this piece tell you to go? You should know the basics like moderato, presto, slowly, largo. They shouldn't give you anything too crazy unless you're an advanced player. Still, it's important to play what's wanted. If the judges are mean, they may give you a beats per minute number. In this instance, try to memorize how fast certain beats per minute are. Can you count 60 beats per minute? Like a clock. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. If the piece you're playing is somewhere close to 50 to 70 beats per minute, your estimate of 60 beats per minute is probably close enough. Do you know the Bee Gees song Stayin' Alive? That's about 100 beats per minute. If you happen to take a CPR class, they may tell you the recommended rate of chest compressions is 100 times per minute. And the way they may suggest you remember this is by thinking of the Bee Gees song Staying Alive. The A in stars is for accidentals. How many notes in the piece have additional flats or sharps or naturals that are not in the key signature? Those are accidentals, and it's good to know when one is coming up. Knowing an accidental is coming means you know the correct way to play it, but also that it will sound different or even clash with what you're playing with. If you can't hear the note in your head while sight reading, you'll at least know the accidental will sound different than the rest of the notes in the scale. The R in stars stands for rhythm. Do you notice any syncopated rhythms or spots that might trip you up or cause you to drag in tempo? Are there a lot of rests? Rest can cause us to rush through or even lose count of the beat. Always have a subdivided metronome going mentally in your head to keep you going. The beat is like a train that is infinitely looping. When we start to play a piece, the train doesn't stop for us to get on. We have to jump on. When the train is going about 30 beats per minute, we can anticipate it a little more because it's slow, and we can put a lot of subdivided beats in there. But when the train is coming at us at 300 beats per minute, you really have to be ready to go. We have to jump on the train. We have to see or hear when the train is coming and time it up when our piece is starting. The S in stars is for signs, which is literally everything else. First, I would recommend looking for repeats, first, second, third endings, codas, or anything that affects where your eyes are going to go other than the next measure. Next, look for alternate tonguing or slurs, legatos, staccatos, marcatos. And finally, the cherry on top, dynamics, forte, piano, crescendo, decrescendo, stuff like that. That's a lot to look at in 30 seconds, and it's most likely not going to happen. But do the most that you can starting from the top and work down. Deny the temptation. You can practice sight reading by sight reading. If you have access to any kind of hymnal, these are perfect to practice the stars method. There are songs in almost every key, some tricky rhythms, plenty of time signatures, and melodies that you can probably tell if you're playing them right or not. Plus, there's hundreds of them. There are a lot of free trumpet resources online. You can Google downloadable trumpet pieces for free, and you can have access to lots of different pieces that way. You can even search for free treble clef music. The point is you're reading music for the first time and implementing the stars method. Once you have a good handle on all aspects of the scales, the solo, and the sight reading, start running through the audition exactly the way you will do it on the day. Find out what scale order will be. Usually they're posted online where you can ask your director. If not, learn them in the circle of fourths or fifths, which is a common way judges may ask you to play them. Start playing in all different environments. Your bedroom, your backyard, your mom's bathroom, your garage, everywhere. You might be used to playing in your band room and your bedroom, and you know how it feels to play in those environments. How would it feel to play in a freezing science classroom at night with fluorescent lights and cold tile floor? When you play there, the sound will be huge, especially if there's nothing soft to absorb the sound. You may never know where or when you will play until the time comes. Get used to playing in different places and notice how it feels to play in different places. Play in front of different people. You'll be playing for judges. Maybe you've never seen them before. Be ready to play for anyone, though, and don't be surprised if it is someone you know. Who knows, it might be your band director. Your audition may be blind, meaning the judges are hidden somehow and they can't see you. Consider what that might be like. Would that be easy for you if they couldn't see you and you couldn't see them? If not, practice in front of someone hidden behind some posters or have the chairs turned around. For those seeking extra credit, play through your audition with someone talking to you while you play. Have them make noise when you would least expect it. Playing through distractions is something all musicians can struggle with, either externally or internally. What are you thinking about when you play? Are you thinking, what will happen if I just stop breathing right now through the horn? If I just stopped playing and just stood here and everyone's looking at me? Or are you thinking about preparing your air for the next chromatic scale or the tricky part coming up next in your solo? Always think ahead. What is coming next? Is the group you're auditioning for a sit-down ensemble like All County Band, or a stand-up ensemble like marching band or pep band? I would recommend playing in your audition how you would play if you made the group. If it's a sit-down group, audition sitting down. If it's a stand-up group, audition standing up. In the end, if you practice sitting down more than you do standing up, maybe just play sit down. Or you can practice standing up more. On the day and night before your audition, warm up nicely and run through your audition a few times. Spread them out and don't play them one after another. You might overdo it that way. Make sure you drink enough water throughout the day. Water helps prevent lactic acid buildup on our lip muscles, which makes us feel tired. Make sure you have enough time to go to bed and get at least 6 hours. Make sure you have enough time to go to bed and get at least 8 hours of sleep. If you can, warm up before you get to where the auditions will be held. Warm up gently and don't overdo it. Get to the audition place early. If you're able, try to get an audition number sometime between the middle and the end of the list. You don't necessarily want to be first. Judges compare players to the players who played before them. It's easy to forget about the first players when you get to the end of the list. Let them hear some players first, then let them be amazed by you. Then they'll think about you when the next players go, and they'll compare your greatness to them. When waiting for your turn to play for the judges, you may notice some other players, especially trumpet players, playing super high or super technical passages, or playing their solos super fast over and over. They're probably trying to show off. Unfortunately for them, they'll most likely blow their lip and won't be fresh for their audition. I might not even play through my solo before the audition. I would focus on my sound production with soft, relaxed, long tones, maybe some articulation work, making sure my tongue is ready to go. Have confidence. You've done everything you can up to this point. Now just do it. No matter what wrong notes you play, and if you play wrong notes, pretend you just meant to play it exactly as you played it. If the judges see that you're upset that you played something wrong, they may question your confidence, which is an aspect of musicianship. If the judges see that you played the best you could, and you seemed happy with your effort, the judge might think, well, maybe this player's got the mindset to play lead trumpet. Playing with confidence is important. You have to have confidence, especially as a trumpet player, to sit out for the first 4 minutes of a song, then all of a sudden hit a high C as loud as you can over the entire band. If you continue to dwell upon the unfortunate past, it will creep into your unfortunate future. It's mental energy stolen from the task at hand. You have to let the bad things go and continue on like everything is going according to plan. Know this: auditions don't truly measure you as a player, and especially as a person. It's how you played on a certain day at a certain time. You might have had a great playing day. You might have had a bad playing day. Every musician has them. Although we try and prepare a perfect audition, there are too many things in the way to make that possible. If we apply as many marginal or small positive differences as we can, they will add up and make a huge difference. In the end, there is no perfect audition, but it's the best we can do at a certain time with the time we had. We can take information from these experiences. Did we practice enough last time? Well, if we practice more this year, maybe we'll play our audition with more confidence and with a better sound. Maybe we didn't have great confidence in the scales and missed some notes. For next year, we start learning those scales now, back and forth. You take what you learn about yourself and figure out how to be better next time. Set achievable goals, long and short term. Maybe this week's short-term goal is to learn the concert C scale. Maybe a long-term goal of 6 months is to learn all the major scales and the minor scales. Maybe your year-long-term goal is to make all county. Whatever your goals are, it ultimately depends on how much time you can commit and how much you want it.